Hello friends, Derek from B.O.M Socks with more B.O.M Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ one bite at a time. So let me remind you, this week we got a bunch of storyline going on from chapter 18 to chapter 24. Tons of stuff going on here. So I'm going to take you to about 19 through 21 today and just kind of give you a quick little overview of a few things, and there's a couple cool lessons here as well. Now chapter 19 reminds us of a prophecy that Abinadi gave back in chapter 13, where he said, "What you do with me after this shall be a type and a shadow which are to come." So in chapter 19, King Noah and his people begin to suffer the consequences of their unrighteousness as prophesied by Abinadi. They were attacked and brought into bondage by the Lamanites. King Noah suffers death by fire. So there's your prophecy fulfilled. And then Noah's son Limhi, who says he was desirous that his father should not be destroyed. Nevertheless, Limhi was not ignorant of the iniquities of his father, he himself being a just man. So Limhi is a good dude. We've already talked about him the last couple of weeks. So here's where we see him becoming king. So he becomes king after Noah's death, and his people agree to a treaty to live, quote unquote, peacefully among the Lamanites for a couple years while still in bondage to them. Many of Noah's wicked priests flee into the wilderness after leaving their wives and children. King Noah tells all of his priests, leave your families and come with me into the wilderness, and that does not work out very well. So you've got all of these priests now who have left their families, which leads us to chapter 20. Now in the first few verses, you've got the Lamanite daughters who are just getting themselves together to sing and to dance and to make themselves merry, just kind of having a good time together. And there's a small number of them, we'll see how many of them are in a moment, but they're gathered together to sing and dance. And here we have the priests of King Noah being ashamed to return back to their own city, to their wives and their children. They left them. And so what do? Verse number 4, they have tarried in the wilderness, having discovered the daughters of the Lamanites, laid there and watched them. Kind of creepy, right? So they're watching these Lamanite daughters dance, and then they have this brilliant idea to all of a sudden kidnap them. And they kidnap 24 of them and take them with them. Again, horrible idea. Now, verse number 6 is kind of a catalyst for the rest of what's going on here. It came to pass that when the Lamanites found out their daughters had been missing, they were angry with the people of Limhi, for they thought it was the people of Limhi. Here's where this starts going downhill, because Limhi's people had made a covenant of peace with them. In fact, the Lamanites come at them in crazy battle, which you can totally understand. If my daughters were taken, yeah, you'd want a battle. In fact, verse 11, it talked about they fought for their lives, for their wives, and for their children. This is Limhi's people, for they exerted themselves, and like dragons did they fight. This is a crazy battle. Now, in this battle, verse number 12, it came to pass they found the king of the Lamanites among the number of their dead, yet he was not dead, having been wounded and left upon the ground, so speedy was the flight of his people. Again, this was a hasty battle. And King Limhi is just like, look, don't kill him, bring him to me, because I want to figure out what happened here, because we made a treaty with these guys. And so he brings the king in, and he says, what cause have ye to come up to war against my people? He's like, what the heck? We made a treaty here, and you guys broke this. Verse number 15, the king said, I have broken the oath, because thy people did carry away the daughters of my people. Therefore, in my anger, we'll come back to that in a moment, I did cause my people to come up to war against thy people. 16, Limhi had heard nothing concerning this matter. Therefore he said, I will search among my people. Whosoever hath done this thing shall perish. And he caused a search to be made among the people. Now in verse number 17, you've got a guy by the name of Gideon, who back in chapter 19 had spared King Noah's life, because Gideon's a good, righteous man. Gideon heard these things. He being the king's captain, he went forth and said to the king, I pray thee, forbear. Do not search this people. Lay not this thing to their charge. Do ye not remember the priests of thy father, whom this people sought to destroy? Are they not in the wilderness? And are not they the ones who have stolen the daughters of the Lamanites? So they work it all out, and they explain, look, this was not our people. So they come to a treaty, and there is peace after understanding is made. Now you go over to chapter 21. Many days later, there is a major battle that ensues, and there's a lot of loss of life. No doubt, lots of frustration concerning this entire situation. Lots of loss and lots of frustration. Now, tying all of these stories together, I think there's an interesting couple of lessons we can learn from this. Lesson number 1, this whole battle started with a misunderstanding, misinformation, and miscommunication. You know, you think about that. How often does that happen in our own lives? Misunderstanding, misinformation, and miscommunication. And again, it led to this crazy battle. A question that you could certainly think about is, how many battles would we avoid in our lives with communication understanding and information rather than judging unrighteously and making assumptions. Back in that chapter 20, verse number 6, the Lamanites were angry with the people of Limhi, for they thought it was the people of Limhi. The lesson here is they made a crazy assumption that caused a lot of problems. And again, it's a good thing we don't do that in our lives, right? Now, lesson number 2 here. There's a nice little pattern. What difference would it make if we actually talked things through before going into battle? Now, this king freely admits, look, I was angry and I went into this battle in my anger. You know, we see that a lot of times in scriptures where anger is not the best motivator. Anger in and of itself is just an emotion. You're not a bad person if you have angry emotions come to you, but it's what you do with those angry emotions that causes a lot of the problems. It's just an emotion, but how we handle that emotion makes all the difference in the world. So rather than hastily and angrily going into battle, many potential battles in our lives can be solved through proper information, communication, and understanding. I love President Nelson's talk a couple years ago. Many of you remember it. It's called Peacemakers Needed. The Savior's message is clear. His true disciples build, lift, encourage, persuade, and inspire, no matter how difficult the situation. True disciples of Jesus Christ are peacemakers, and peacemaking requires us to communicate. It requires to seek understanding. Rather than being less judgmental, it requires us to be a little bit more curious and be willing to talk and to be willing to listen. So anyway, a couple different lessons here that I think are powerful as you go through these stories, and I'm grateful for them, and I know that they are true. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for sharing these messages. We're so grateful that you do that as always. If you like what you see, click the like button. You got to go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel themed socks at BOM-BITES.com. You guys have an amazing day, and we'll see you next time. Godspeed. Bye-bye.